Beneath ancient trees and forgotten forests, a small creature ran swift and silent, its heart racing with the rhythm of survival. It was a Hypsilophodon nimble, an alert weaving through ferns that remembered no human touch. Millions of years later, a girl named Ava uncovered its fossil untouched by time, whispering secrets from a lost world. Each night the dreams came vivid and strange, showing her the life once lived by the creature she called Hippie. As past and present blurred, Ava began to realize this was more than discovery. It was a message meant just for her. The rain had not stopped for 2 days. Ava sat on the floor of her tent, wrapped in an old sleeping bag, her journal resting open on her knees. Her flashlight cast long shadows across the canvas walls as the storm outside pounded the earth like distant footsteps. She didn't sleep much anymore, not since the last dream. Her fingers traced the latest sketch she had made. It was of hippies standing on a rocky ridge staring out across a blackened sky. Lava had split the ground in the distance, and smoke curled through the once green trees. The dream had been so clear it felt like memory. She had followed Hippie from the moment it was born. She had watched it grow, watched it learn to leap between low roots to avoid the snare-toothed predators. She had even seen it nudge a younger sibling into a hollow log as a Carnotaurus stalked nearby. But this last dream was not about survival. It was the end. Ava closed her eyes and let the images return. Hippie was running fast, its limbs pumping across the dry forest floor. The earth trembled underfoot. Birds screamed above as the sky darkened. A wall of ash moved like a wave between the trees. Hippie looked back, once then leapt down a slope. Ava had felt the impact. She had felt the heat. She had felt the loneliness in Hippie's chest as it cried for a herd that had already scattered. It had not been just a dream. It had been shared fear, shared silence, shared death. She opened her eyes slowly. Her pulse was still quick, her breathing shallow. She wrote what she remembered, every detail, every sound. Then she turned to the photograph she had taken earlier in the day. It was from a small cavern near the dig site, where another volunteer had noticed odd markings on the stone. When Ava had cleaned the soot and moss, she saw the figures more clearly. Not just smudges, but shapes. A long-necked reptile, a sharp-toothed predator. But in the center was something unmistakable. A small dinosaur like Hippie drawn beside a tall, two-legged figure. A human? That made no sense. Humans were not around in the time of Hypsilophodon. The timelines didn't overlap. But the shape was there, and it looked like a person. The idea rooted itself in her mind. What if it wasn't just art? What if it was memory carved across time? She packed her journal and the photograph and left the tent. The rain had eased to a mist. Mud clung to her boots as she walked across the field toward the research station. Light glowed in one of the windows. Dr. Khalil was still awake. He looked up as she entered his office, shaking water from her jacket. His expression softened as he saw the determination in her eyes. "I need to show you something," Ava said, laying the journal and photo on the table. He studied both in silence. Then he sat back in his chair, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "These dreams of yours, they become stronger. They're not dreams anymore. I feel everything. I know where Hippie went, what it saw, what it feared. This," she pointed at the sketch, "this is how it died." Dr. Khalil said nothing. He leaned forward and tapped the cave art. "And this? I think it's a memory. Not from the past, but from something deeper. Maybe fossils carry more than data. Maybe they hold echoes, emotions. Maybe our brains are tuned to pick them up when we're open enough." He looked at her with tired eyes and a patient kind of disbelief. "That would change everything, Ava. It would change how we understand time biology, even the nature of consciousness." She nodded. "I want to write it. A paper. Not as a scientific fact, but as a theory, a hypothesis. Something to start a conversation." He folded his hands. "You'll be mocked. You'll be called a dreamer. They'll say you're chasing fantasy." "I don't care," she said. Hippie mattered. Its story matters. I can't just stay silent because it's easier. Dr. Khalil stared at her, then slowly smiled. "Then I'll read it before you send it. Every word." 3 weeks later, Ava stood in a small lecture hall packed beyond its limits. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters scribbled notes. She took the podium, her hands trembling slightly. She told them everything. Not just the fossil, but the dreams, the sensations, the final night, the bond. She spoke not as a scientist defending data, but as a witness sharing a story. When she finished, silence filled the room. Then came the questions, some sharp, some mocking, others curious. You're suggesting telepathic memory transmission? One man asked with a smirk. No, she replied calmly. I'm suggesting that some things cannot be measured but still exist. We are connected to the past through more than just bones. A pale woman from a university in Canada leaned forward. Do you believe these dreams came from the fossil? I believe they came from what the fossil held inside. Not just calcium and sediment, but emotion, pain, will. The questions continued, some harsh, some kind, but Ava stood tall through all of them. That night, she walked alone by the sea. Wind tossed her hair across her face. She held the pendant Dr. Khalil had given her, a tiny fossil cast of hippie embedded in silver. The waves rolled endlessly onto the dark shore. Her phone buzzed. A message from the museum in France. We saw your talk. Would you consider curating a new exhibit? Title, Voices in Stone. Let's tell their stories. Ava stared out into the night. For the first time in weeks, the dreams had stopped, but inside her the silence felt full, not empty, as if Hippie had spoken one last time and now rested.